Hello, and welcome to At Your End Step. My name is Morgan, and I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
And we have another fun-filled episode for you folks this week.
Back to back.
Back to back. Look at us.
So,
being consummate professionals and doing things that we are solely responsible for. So, yeah. Unfortunately, this is a week off of a holiday, so there's not necessarily a whole lot to talk about, but we have a few subjects that we thought about might be kind of interesting, and then we have something kind of large in the community to talk about as well. So let's just jump right in.
I can get angry about anything. So.
I mean, that's true.
We're
magic
actually
players.
One of my skills.
Yeah, much like the Hulk, some might say.
No, he's always angry. I get angry.
Okay, you can always get angry, but I don't
want to get sued, man.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So talking about community, we do have the full Ultimate Masters spoiler now, so we can kind of get kind of an idea of what some archetypes you might be seeing if you are going to be able to draft a box, or if you know a millionaire or something like that, a few boxes.
Yeah, or if you can stand in a corner and watch rich people draft it.
Yeah. They'll let you lean over the velvet ropes they've set up around their draft table and allow you to view what they are actually drafting here. But
I gotta tell you, this is not Bernie Sanders' draft format.
No,
no, he doesn't support drafts.
He doesn't support
for the top 1%
top
of
1%.
1% of Magic players.
Correct. He's all about that 99% drafts. He's like core 19 for everyone.
I think that everyone should be doing Homelands drafts. I know there's not a lot of value, but it's fair for everybody.
It's plentiful. It's the people's draft format.
A bountiful Homelands harvest.
But there are some kind of interesting archetypes that you can already see coming together. I think one of the strongest ones that's easiest to identify is actually in Black-White, and I think it's Black-White Reanimator. We have cards like a Burial Rites, which I know is a big part of that. You have things like
Resurrection.
Resurrection, yeah, that's what I was thinking of. And then in these colors, you do have some worthwhile creatures that are, going to be good to get back. And I don't know if you saw this, but there are some Spell Shapers that are actually in the format as well. Not just in white, but also in a few other colors. But you have the Acacian Crier, which is a way to discard cards, which can be important in that sort of archetype. I think that's kind of one of a very easy to identify, sort of prominent one. We also have some Madness cards. We have some Enablers, and we have some famous, we have things like Circular Logic, which is a very popular one, Fiery Temper, Wild Mongrel, which are all sort of, work well with each other, as it turns out. Blue definitely feels like it has a lot of things that are good at putting things in your graveyard and using them, whether it be with Delve or if you do have a way to use a card where you're discarding it.
Blue is also just spells matter.
Spells matter is definitely,
You have things like Living Lore as an uncommon, and Rise Tides as an uncommon, and things like Rune Snag, and the kind of things they want you to stack things in your graveyard with. So it spells matter.
Sure. But
you get Frantic Search in the format with Spells Matter. You get Frantic Search with things like Just the Wind.
Yeah.
Which is the Madness bounce spell. My gosh. I want to do it. I want to wreck it. Oh, wait. Sorry.
Now, something that I think is really weird, and that I don't know if it's well supported, but you do have a lot of big colorless cards that exist within the format, right? You have all the Eldrazi Titans, which I know are mythics, which you have All's Dust and stuff like that, or even what's the common Eldrazi that we actually have?
Ulamog's Crusher
with cool new art. He's going through his teenager phase. He's only got his little arms. Doesn't have full big arms yet.
He has both. What are you talking about?
He has little arms and big arms, but he has this little set of useless little tiny arms.
It's kind of Ulamog's thing, man. I don't know what to tell you.
But I was honestly expecting Urza lands in this set, to be perfectly honest. Now, as soon as we got all the box toppers like that, they were already out, because we know that Urborg is the I think
Right,
the
right.
last card. So, but I just don't see like a lot of stuff to support those cards. You have Through the Breach, but like, I guess they don't have to, and like they're just good cards to reprint into. Like, they're expensive, but you know, sometimes you just want like a weird case that we could be like, well, actually, you can do this. And you know, Crusher and Artisan of Kozilek, sometimes those are good just to bring back anyway. Like, who cares? They're just like good cards. So maybe that's just the point, just to kind of put in some big dumb creatures to bring back from the graveyard that are colorless, so you don't have to worry about it. You also have, I don't know if we talked about it, green white auras.
No, it's like auras / heroic.
Yeah, and that can even stretch into Bant as well.
It's true. A bunch of the heroic creatures got downshifted. Was it Hero of Iroas?
Yeah, Iroas, Hero of Linia Tower.
Yeah, also got downshiffted. And I gotta tell you, there's one card in that archetype that would make me pretty excited if I was playing, because Travel Preparations is in this format.
Oh, it's very good. It's very good with heroic.
Like, Travel Preparations is already good, but like with heroic, it could be bonkers.
Yeah.
So I like that a lot. That's some cool synergy.
Going back to like a black-white reanimator, you definitely know that's the thing to be doing in those colors. If you look at the Signpost uncommon they got, which is Angel of Despair, which was a rare. It is a very iconic card as well. So it's definitely very hard to cast, but not very hard to bring back from your graveyard if you're doing that. And even in like blue-black, you have like Counter Squall, which is just pretty much a Signpost, blue-black counterspell, deals damage, counters a non-creature spell. Just a negate plus, which is pretty good. And even then, like, you look at Blast of Genius as being like madness, kind of shifting your focus to that because you can discard a card with it. So kind of a synergy with that. I think the weird one is Garna the Bloodflame for black-red. They have like a subtle like sacrifice sub theme.
Well, did you understand how the Garna works though, right? It says from anywhere.
Yeah.
So you can discard a bunch of cards.
Oh, I guess that's true as well.
Garna. Like that's kind of the goal. Like, you'd have to be Jund to do it, but you could live the Wild Mongrel dream, right? Where you're just like, I'll pitch all these creatures. I'll put them back in my hand.
Fair enough. But yeah, like some of these are Signpost uncommon. Some of these are just like powerful cards they have a chance to reprint.
Yeah, for sure.
I know that some people who have Pauper cubes are pretty excited to see like Dimir Guildmage go be downshifted to common and be able to like go into those cubes, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I definitely think this actually looks like I think this looks like a good draft format, if that makes any sense. I think like it definitely it feels closer to something like Masters 2017 than like Masters 2015.
I would agree with that. Also, like all the value calculations of it. I know last week I was a little down on some of the rares. Even some of the rares I was down on, didn't realize they were kind of expensive. Like, I thought Fallen Ashama was a bad rare. That card was, I guess, it was $10. So I was not aware. So I think like by all counts, if you get a box with a box topper anywhere close to what they've been selling for, which around us in Ohio has been, some of the Black Friday deals for local stores were as low as $225.
Yeah.
So if you got anywhere near that price or all the way up to MSRP, you're probably doing pretty good, which is surprising, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I think that Wizards was at the very least successful in providing enough value for this to make sense, even if it's not a price point I want to see in the future, I guess. It's just difficult. It's difficult to have this high priced product. It'd still be worth it theoretically. You're still going to get, it combined with the value and entertainment you would get from drafting it, get your money's worth. But man, it is not something that they can do all the time. But they said this is going to be, the last Ultimate Masters for a while. Last Master Set for a while, I should say.
It's probably the only Ultimate Masters.
Probably. I mean, like, they could just do Ultimate Masters too. Yeah.
I hope they start going into Power Rangers naming conventions, actually. Yeah. So, like Modern Masters, like Ninja Force.
What was the Cars one?
Turbo.
Turbo. Okay, yeah. Modern Masters Turbo.
Turbo Masters. Cards gotta go fast.
All the fast cards. Everything has haste.
Oh my god, that's actually
There
amazing.
there are no white cards in this set.
I just like the idea of the Master sets start just stealing random, like, it's like, I don't know, Masters Deep Space Nine, like, whatever. Just steal it from anything. Just make it whatever you want. Who cares?
Yes, this is great. Please send us your Masters name suggestions on Twitter if you are so inclined.
They're as good as anything Wizards has.
Yeah, 100%.
I know we talked about this a little bit last week, too. We should mention we have a full list of, like, Pauper downshifts.
Yeah.
And there's a couple pretty important cards.
Yeah.
You mentioned Dimir Guildmage.
Yeah.
Did you? I don't know if you just said Resurrection. We mentioned, but that's a downshift to common.
Oh wow!
And it's pretty powerful. Like it's literally Zombify in white, so it might open up even a new archetype depending on what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely.
We got Fire and Ice at common.
Yeah, I know a lot of people are excited about that for Cube.
That's terrifying. Well, not just Cube, like Pauper in general.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh.
Blue red is already a very significantly like powerful archetype in Pauper. So
that's good for your Pauper Cube too, because you can remove just any bounce spell. I don't care which one.
Yeah, just any of them.
You have Reckless Worm, which is interesting, and Foil though. Foil's the card that's getting a ton.
Yeah, Foil plus Gush is disgusting.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. So if you don't know what Foil, Foil's a bit of an old card. It's from Prophecy. It's 2 generic blue counter target spell, or you can discard an island. Is it 1 island?
Yeah, it's 1 island.
Yeah, discard 1. I was trying to click on it, but it's not letting me. 1 island in your hand to pay without its mana cost. So you can alternate cast. Essentially, it's being called the Pauper Force of Will, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
If you didn't like playing against Delver decks that already had access to things like Gush, well, guess what?
Gush isn't legal in Legacy, right?
It is not.
Okay. So
it's restricted in Vintage, I think.
Probably. Yeah, that makes sense.
So.
But you can play as many Gush as you want in Pauper, it turns out. And also Foil coming soon, so Misery.
I know a lot of people are saying like maybe it's it might be overblown, but I have to think of like the Tireless Tribe deck with the combo deck with that already plays like Circular Logic as protection. Like, man, Foil's pretty good there, right? Like,
yeah.
So I don't know. It's definitely scary. You are sticking just a 4 mana like counter spell in your hand that if you don't have the land to pay for gets awkward, and it's not like the Delver decks are rolling in land. That's kind of what Gush is for. So it'll be interesting to see what the tension is, but it's kind of cool to get a piece like that. I know some people have already said that that's going to be the Peregrine Drake though of the set.
Yeah, it just gets immediately banned.
Like, oh, that was a cool 3 weeks. Bye everybody.
Bye. See you later. Sorry I ruined your format. I'll leave now.
So I thought those were some interesting things to shake it up. I'm really excited to see if Resurrection actually does anything. It might not, but it would be cool to see if there's a deck in Pauper that can support having a white Resurrection spell like that. And in addition, I think is there one other one? I have to go back and look now. I don't know.
It's also important to point out this isn't a downshift. It's technically an upshift, but Chainer's Edict is going to get a reprint.
Very excited. And Circular Logic, honestly. Both of those are going to be helpful. Chainer's Edicts are very expensive in paper.
Correct.
I had to buy some recently, and I know. So,
but there is definitely some cool things that are going to be entering Pauper. Definitely some cool things that are going to be entering into people's peasant cubes. Like I said, we already talked about one spicy downshift being Angel of Despair. So if that's sort of your thing, definitely take a look and see what can go on now, and what's good enough, what makes the cut. So yeah.
So trying to think here. Living Lore probably doesn't make the cut, unfortunately. Oh, Apprentice Necromancer. That's a sweet one for Peasant Cubes. I think Firewing Phoenix is kind of a spicy one for Peasant Cubes.
I think so, too.
So that's kind of sweet. Penumbra Worm, I know we saw mentioned, is something that you might see some play as well. And for some reason, we got Laboratory Maniac. And I cannot understand for the life of me why that's an uncommon. Like, there's nothing about the text in that card that says it should ever be an uncommon, right?
No, not really, not at all.
No, so that one, I don't know. We've discussed this before, and there are definitely people who believe that like these sets shouldn't, like the rarity shouldn't count. And I generally disagree because I think it's fun. But then I look at that downshift and I go, all right, I get it. I get why some of these shouldn't count because like what? Like every time that's an uncommon in your pack, you're like, oh, okay, cool, thanks.
I assume that there is a deck that you can build that definitely has that as a win condition.
I guess.
I assume it's some sort of blue-black deck that...
I personally love drafting decks that want to mill themselves while also having a lot of really good common removal in a format. That's my favorite thing. I can't wait to get every Lab Maniac fired while I have no cards in my library. That's going to be great.
But I think this is cool, and I know that we'll get to draft it a few times, just via knowing people that are going to buy this. So I'm excited to give it a shot and see what happens. But yeah, Ultimate Masters, there you go. Comes out next week, which is ridiculous.
Ultimate Master Zeo, go!
Oh boy!
And I'm going to search for a list of Power Rangers suffixes.
Nice. This is their new game since. Wimbledon champion Bells and Luck isn't really talked about that much anymore.
Lists of Power Ranger series. Boom, baby.
Don't take it away from the listeners. They may want to have some fun with some of those too.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, they can if they want. I mean, it's entirely up to them. Can I just say like Ultimate Masters the motion picture?
That's gonna be the Magic movie. We figured it out. We figured out what they're gonna do.
Oh man!
All right. So the next thing that we have to talk about is the bigger community topic, which is that some Magic artists are going to be boycotting the Magic Fests, which are, of course, the rebranding of the GPs. But they have some. Basically, some complaints that Channel Fireball events kind of needs to acknowledge to some degree. And I know Mike is going to be better at handling this than I will be, so I'll hand the mic off to him.
Well, not to step on anyone else's feet, because this was actually came more to light from an article from Vorthos Mike. So don't confuse Vorthos Mike with me, Mike. Me, Mike, that Vorthos Mike. Okay. But he's the one who sort of brought this together. There is an open letter that he has in his article that has been signed by a number of artists. The biggest complaints, though, were essentially that over the years, much like a lot of things in related to Magic and GPs and big events, artists have gone, at least again, the events that WotC is itself entangled with, have gone from guests of honor to being treated like vendors. Now you might say like, oh well, that's not a big deal. They essentially are vendors, right? They sell their wares, they this and that. Yeah, kinda. But there's some differences for artists, because artists vendors make their money at events because that's where the players are with their cards. But artists make their money like making art, so they have to really balance their appearances. You've seen some of the subtle shifts in how artists are viewed within the last few years, like the big controversy over paying for signatures, for example. Well, that makes a lot more sense if you know that the artists themselves are now having to pay for their booths. If they are a vendor, they have to pay for that. Their table space is different. It used to be pretty common. They would have things like their hotel or their flight comped. This is less common now. And the less that you are willing to work with these artists and pay them, then the less they'll be able to come, because you can't really expect, especially I think this article highlights a lot of problems, but in my mind, newer artists, the artists who don't have a ton of work for Magic, but really want to be a part of these sort of celebrations, and players want them to come and celebrate their art. If they can't expect to hey, I don't have that many products to sell, then why would I pay the money to be here? I'm not going to make that money back, So it's a little tough, and there are also other minor things like I won't say I shouldn't say minor because I don't want to minimize it, but not having safe places to lock up expensive equipment, not having dedicated areas for breaks and for being able to be away from the show, it just has gotten less and less, and I think with seeing this shift towards Magic Fests, which is still hilarious, but towards Magic Fests, a lot of artists saw this as okay, well, if this doesn't change, you're going to turn this into this big celebration of Magic, and then when artists won't go because they don't have it isn't cost effective, you can already see the sort of wheels where they want to get out in front of this before it's the artist's fault, right? Why aren't you coming anymore? You greedy artists, you super greedy, obviously incredibly rich artists who just. It's just
they're the 1% we were talking about. They're buying all the
Ultimate Masters. That's what they're getting paid in. You know what I mean? Literally only in box toppers. That's their bathwater.
It makes sense.
Scrooge McDuck style.
Well, see, there's this controversy because for Vancouver, they have to open all the product for the sealed. So where those box toppers go, man?
Oh man,
where do they go?
Right to the artists.
To the artists.
Wealthy
figured it out,
bastards. But in all reality, like it's a legitimate problem, and I think we've seen this. You know, the major thing is to compare it to how other conventions work, because Magic's been towing this line, and now Magic Fest really is openly flaunting with this idea that these are not tournaments, they are conventions, right? Like, yes, there are tournaments there, but there are also tournaments at conventions too. So like you see how this works. But in those conventions, you know, the artists are guests, right? Like, or they have their own designated area. There's a different way they are set up. You know, I think about you know, we've both been to Gen Con a number of times. Like, Artist Alley is its own place with its own financial distribution system. The table space is different, and it does not cost as much overhead for the artists to be there. And they were able to pack more artists in. They planned for this, right? If you're at a different kind of convention where you're a celebrity or an artist or a guest of honor, you are used to advertise, right? Magic does that too, but it's really, really weird to make the artist pay vendor fees and then take their name and then use it to advertise. Like, hey, they're going to be here. Did you see that? We're making them pay us so we can tell you that. So reading this article brought a lot of things to light that I know have been below the surface, and it's been pretty interesting. Now, Morgan showed me that Channel Firewall did rebut a little bit, but it's kind of weird. They flat out said that like just some of the things were untrue, but I have a hard time thinking that a bunch of artists who work for WotC just got together and lied. Like, that's the weirdest thing. Like, did they just get together and lie? And the problem is too, like, CFB Events is the one putting these things on, but like when you're talking about staffing at events, those staffing at events, you know, outside of the core people who travel with CFB Events, staffing changes all the time. So you could totally have different experiences at different places. But it's very weird because they're like, oh, well, you can email us here. So if you're having problems, tell us this. But these people are wrong. And that does not seem like a good way to meet these people. Like, artists are obviously very important because Magic is a game that's, you know, it's sold on its imagery. Like, you walk into a GP, you see Magic imagery, Magic art everywhere. It's important. It is iconic. It ties the game together. So I think to have all these, you know, to just sort of ignore all of these professional artists who are again integral to the success of the game is so weird to me. And again, it's just one of those things where we as Magic players can look around and go, no one else does it like this. Why are we always out to blank people? Sorry, I got close. Like, we're just out to screw people. I don't understand it. I do not get it. And I guess the answer to it is something that, you know, friend of the show Jordan Kennedy said, which is monopolies are bad. So what we need to do, resurrection's now a common. We need to resurrect Teddy Roosevelt, go trust busting.
Go trust busting. Yeah, okay.
And then ghost busting right afterwards.
To get rid of
Teddy Roosevelt.
Correct. I understand. This makes sense. Yeah, I think that you know, something that has been put forward, which I think is an interesting idea, is to you know, if you're not playing in a main event, to enter into a Magic Fest is free. You can walk into the venue hall and do whatever you want there, whether you want to do side events or, you know, hang out with your friends, whatever. There's been put forward that, you know, could there be a, you know, entry fee? This would be not you know, wouldn't be charged to the people entering into a GP, right? Or if you bought like a badge or something, if you bought entry into some large event inside of the, you know, Magic Fest weekend, you know, this would be something included in that cost. But if you were just a person walking in casually, you know, what if they charge like a $5 fee for a bracelet, you know, for entry into the hall to help cover the cost of, you know, bringing in the artists, making sure they get compensated. And I think that is, you know, kind of an interesting question to ask.
I'm glad you went there.
Yeah.
I told you I could get angry about something. And
Yeah.
now I'm going to grind some tears.
All right.
Okay.
Go for it.
It's been a while. Ooh, I got to stretch a little bit before I start doing this. So I got a little angry over the weekend about something, and I'm going to relate this back to what you just suggested. But I get emails from CFB Events because I go to CFB Events. I went to GP Milwaukee because I want to play Magic. But we all know the GPs have gone up in price a lot and have also gone up in price with the coordination of CFB Events taking over everything, right?
Correct.
Because there's no competition. Again, trust busting / ghost busting. But then they had a Black Friday sale on their event entries. Now,
Yes.
not all of them, but a fair amount of them.
Correct.
And some of them were pretty significant, up to $25 off of entry for some of the sealed ones. And when they tell us that entry, like for these events, is based entirely off of, you know, keeping the the rising costs of staffing, the rising costs of venues, but then they're like, literally playing Calvin ball with the amount they can like, oh, here's a sale, this is it. It blew my mind. It literally blew my mind. I'm like, what? So these prices mean nothing? You can charge whatever you want whenever you want? Because we all assume that, right?
Yeah.
But here we are. And not just that, they've also taken away things like, mats and things like that. Like when I was at Milwaukee, obviously I didn't get a mat with my $70 entry fee, and then I watched them sell those mats for $15 a pop, and they sold a lot of those mats.
Yeah.
That is pure profit compared to before. I say pure profit. They paid to make the mats, but also people bought the mats because they had official Magic artwork on them. Isn't that effing weird? Sorry, getting angry. I didn't say the word though.
You didn't.
I got close.
You didn't.
Okay, I didn't.
You didn't. You said
so
effing.
when you say like, oh, maybe to account for this, right? We should just charge random people coming in. One, I hope that's not the case, right? Again, Magic flaunting with being a convention, but it's not. And GP numbers haven't been going up. You know what I mean? Like we've seen a number of really, really small ones, and compared to where we were at a few years ago, it is not what we have seen.
Yeah.
So you want people going here, and Magic Fest, especially the ones that are going to coincide with the Pro Tour, right? You want to just get people there. You want people in there, their eyes on it. You want them focused on this. I don't think Magic's big enough, right, to do that. Additionally, artists are really hit or miss. If you're going to charge $5, you better have names, right? And you don't. Now, could they get to a point where they need to charge because of all the things they have there? Yes, but if they're going to start charging, then it's got to be an entire reshift. Like, I need to know that these artists I want to see are going to be there, and that you're compensating the pros that I want to be there as well. Like, you need to make it a true event. The closest we've gotten to that is Star City doing SCGCon, and they still don't charge you to walk inside for that.
Yeah.
So, I think that suggesting that the way to go to pay for artists is to immediately charge an entry fee is amazing. It just blows my mind. At some point, could that be the answer? Maybe. But when you literally just charge what you want, you're not paying out more money.
No.
Right? Like, it's got to go somewhere. It has to literally go somewhere. And you're going to keep cutting corners and pretending like it's better. I can keep taking a dump in a bucket and tell you that, like, it's going to get better. Just wait. Alchemy doesn't exist.
This is true. Yeah, if you keep cutting corners, you don't have anything left.
It's really frustrating. Could we get to a point where you do need to have an entry fee and it really is a convention? I could totally see that. But at this point, like, I have seen costs increase, corners cut everywhere, and now with artists and everything else. But again, they're still going to sit here and profit off these artists. I saw somebody in the thread for the article talk about how, well, I don't see like LSV ever get upset when he's asked to sign a card. No, but do you know what LSV is when he's at these major events? Compensated because he's a platinum pro.
Correct.
Like, he literally gets paid wait for it, appearance fee. Right? I'm not saying that's a lot. He should probably deserves more for that. But yeah, that's why he does that. So then you turn around and get mad. Well, yeah, with the artists, they're just they are a vendor because they're selling their signature. Well, they're doing that because they're no longer paid. Wait for it. An appearance fee. So like these things, like it just isn't just Magic, and I know that's a weird way to phrase that, but it isn't. So I think, if you're going to again continue to use Magic art as a way to sell the game, because it is the way to sell the game, right? And then and put it on all these extra things, right? Like what's the most popular item to get at a GP prize wall?
I don't know.
What do people work for?
Like, save up all their tickets for and stuff like that. I don't know. Probably like giant cards.
Giant cards. There were a ton of them at GP Milwaukee. I think they had 10 or 15 oversized cards, and they were all pretty much gone by Sunday. And they had all the lands from the guild packs, like with the cool art and everything on it. That's what they're going to get is the iconic art. So like, pretend like it's as important as the players think it is.
Yeah.
So I think that Channel Firewall's response to it was weak, and if you. Again, it's frustrating seeing CFB events like do this and knowing that Star City did such a good job with these things and just being like, nah, we're okay with mediocrity, but we're going to put new paint on it, I guess. You know what I mean? Like, you can't, if you just use new paint to cover up the lead paint, kids still die.
As it turns out, still lead paint under there. Still bad base.
It's weird. That might have been an aggressive ending to that.
Maybe. Dead children, definitely aggressive. Definitely a hard end. Definitely. Here's the thing, like, There was a poll on Twitter that asked the question: would you like consider paying $5 to enter into the hall to compensate artists? And I said no, because I already don't want to go to GPs. I already don't want to go to Magic Fest. They're too expensive and they're not worth like my time. Hang out with my friends is worth my time, but I can do that and not have to pay $75. It's this weird thing. So
I only paid $69.99. So nice.
But there's other things I could do to get that same experience and still have as much fun. That doesn't cost me that. And I don't know when Magic Fests are going to return to being something that I'm interested in, and maybe they never will. And that's unfortunate. But there is seemingly plenty of other people. Well, not plenty, but there's seemingly other people that do want to, attend those events and chase something. But the price point just is too much for me. And when you even take a look at something like Star City and their event prices, it increasing in 2019 to $60, like that's we're getting close. We are getting close to just me being like priced out of going to these events and being able to justify it. So I think it's rough. I think like there has to be more transparency into seeing like where all this is going, because with the Black Friday sale that happened, like that is just such a bad look as to being like they're not taking a loss. Like they can't be taking a loss with those. And like I think one of the other things that is pretty frustrating is some of the events that you could register for, they haven't even released what format it is.
Format it is. So just pay.
So just like here, give us. Who cares? It could be anything. It could literally be like the Legacy like GP. Oops.
What if it's Ultimate Masters?
Ooh, it's definitely not
the motion picture. But
I don't know. This is like an entire frustrating thing with like me and Magic Fest and this monopoly. I think like if people continue to invest money into this, it's going to you are going to continue being taken advantage of by this monopoly this corporate monopoly. And it's bad.
I understand that I am definitely a hypocrite sitting here because I'm playing out the string. I went to Milwaukee, but I thought like one of the reasons I went to Milwaukee is because one, I wanted to go. Like I wanted to go on a trip. I hadn't done it in a while. Gotten in a car and just driven to a city and did things. That's the allure of that. And that unfortunately that is tied now to CFB events and this specifically. And like I'm more than likely going to go to Magic Fest Cleveland because I want to see what it is. And I think the concept of a GP being tied to a Pro Tour is something they should have done a long time ago. And I know they literally used to do that, but like it's something that should have been kept together as opposed to trying to keep the Pro Tour this separate entity. Like it just like the Invitational is for SCG. Like you should get players there excited and hyped about it. You know what I mean? I should be playing at least in catacorner to the people playing for this high profile, right? That's how you let people live vicariously. It's not just through watching; it's through like getting them in that room.
True.
You know what I mean? This is why you have amateur fights on a boxing card. You know what I mean? Like, or when you go to a concert and you have opening bands, right? Like, this is how this works. You need to have that sort of act there. So, I think that the concept still sounds exciting to me. That like, let's make this big party. You know what I mean? And again, Star City did it first. SCG Con did it first. But I think that, as you see this going down, like now I'm looking forward to Magic Fest Cleveland where maybe no artists will show up because we just didn't feel like paying them. And that really doesn't sound like much of a Magic Fest. Like in my mind, if you don't want to pay artists to be there, then you should probably take down all the Magic artwork.
Or like not even like they're asking just to keep their like compensation the same as it used to be. Like, just like, please maintain the status quo.
Hey, can we please have a special place to lock our very expensive equipment in here? Most of us can only afford this. Like, this isn't our extra equipment we're bringing with us. This is our equipment. So can we, like, lock that up somewhere? Or no? Okay, cool. I'll sleep on it. Thanks. You know what I mean? Like, that kind of stuff does blow my mind.
Yeah. It's rough.
So, and I just think about like one of my favorite things at those kind of events is, I have my battle box. I love going and getting cards signed for that. I think it makes them unique. And when I find good signatures, one of the people who was at GPO Milwaukee was Elena Danner, who she did Supreme Will and a couple of, like, she's pretty new for Magic as far as like her signature is gorgeous, and she does like a gold outline with it. And like she was one of the ones at Milwaukee, and it's like, well, but, she's the kind of person who she doesn't have a lot of Magic artwork. So like if you're gonna start charging her an arm and a leg, I guarantee you won't see her again.
Right.
You know what I mean? I saw her at Gen Con first. You know what I mean? She should go there as opposed to, a GP. Why would she do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that based on a lot of assumptions. I don't preclude to know anything personally about her, but like I know that as a fan, I like her artwork. I think her signature was great. I was very happy to pay for it, but my $2 isn't going to pay for her to keep her booth.
No.
So I don't know, but it is. But I will say I'm also the kind of person who, what if it is a close enough GP that I could drive to? Certain artists on a list have made me go before.
Yeah.
Because I'm excited for that.
Right.
And I am definitely not the only person for that. There are plenty of people I know in our local community who are Magic art collectors who that's their thing.
Yeah.
You know, this game has like Magic Fest should be about all the different ways that players like this game. The collector, both card and art, all these different things. And when you start shutting the door on certain things, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right. So that's it for our community segments. Before we jump into the competitive segment, definitely want to give a shout out to our lovely sponsor, Comic Town. You can stay abreast of everything that they have going on by visiting them on Facebook, by doing a quick search for Comic Town Gaming Center, or by going to worldofcomictown.com. All right, so the only event that happened over the weekend was a limited GP. It was in Warsaw, so we definitely just want to give a quick shout out here to the actual winner, which is a face you might be more familiar with these days. It was Eduardo Sajgalik, or Sajgalik. He has been doing coverage for like GPs, so if you've been watching those, again, you might seem familiar, but I think it's really impressive when someone can, still have such success. Because he recently top aided another GP with Is It Drake's not too long ago.
I'm not sure. Was it Drake's?
Yes, it was.
Oh, okay.
For sure. I hate you. So I've always find it really impressive when someone can have, such a high level of success in the competitive segment, and then also still be a very good face for Magic coverage. So, congrats to you. I like he listens. He doesn't listen to this, but congrats to him.
He's like sitting at home, like literally, like, oh, well, thanks, guys.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
That would be great, but
long-time listener, first-time caller.
It's definitely not.
No.
But since that's the only tournament, we kind of wanted to talk about what's coming up. So we have Star City Games Baltimore, which is going to be a Modern tournament. And Modern has, I feel like, had a new force enter into it, and it's starting to really make an impact with the metagame. And that new force is Arclight Phoenix.
I feel like that's all we've talked about the last 2 weeks, but I love the card, so I'm okay
true,
with it.
But we're seeing it kind of pop up in both expected places but unexpected places. Recently, there was a Modern Challenge where a black-red version of the black-red hollow one went 7-0 in the tournament, and contained Arclight Phoenixes, and kind of really reinforces that this is a card that is fairly versatile as long as you are playing a lot of spells, and kind of has more homes than what you may have thought. But I really feel like it's starting to kind of show up on a lot of people's radar and making a lot of people kind of take notice to what's going on in Modern. And I think like there are going to be some shifts, some changes. I think there was a tweet by I forget who it was. I think it was Jonathan Rossum, maybe.
Okay.
It's like humans is bad now or something like that.
Well, while you look that up, I'll talk about here. I will say, in addition to that that list that did well on the Modern Premier event, we also had one of the regionals, one of the SCG regionals, was actually won by the blue-red version of the Arclight Phoenix decks, playing Bedlam Revelers, Thing in the Ice, and Arclight Phoenix plus a lot of spells. So we've seen the lists start to become a little more streamlined as we've seen them. I know that even like Runaway Red did well at our local SCG regionals. I think it was Ben Weinberg top aided with a Runaway Red list. And I've been playing Runaway Red on Moto a little bit and have found the deck to be absolutely busted. So I wasn't super surprised to see like there's a number of articles. I know LSV was streaming with a version of the Hollow One Arclight Phoenix deck this week. Jerry Thompson's been writing about it and has a couple different lists. So I think that it's kind of cool to see, it was on the fringes there for a little bit, but now we can see Arclight Phoenix sort of taking over the world, if you will, or the modern world, but also standard. So close. coming soon to a Legacy event near you, Arclight Phoenix?
LSV definitely had a play of the week, or top 5 Magic plays of the week. He was playing with a Arclight Phoenix deck in Legacy, and got 2 Arclight Phoenixes on turn 1. So
probe. Oh my gosh, unban it! I need it back right now.
he did it with a gut shot.
That card is bonkers with Arclight Phoenix.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I the first time I was able to keep went turn to Runaway Steamkin with Runaway Red and then untapped, and just like was looking at how my hand was like set up, and I was like, wait a second, I don't think I ever stopped playing spells. And I didn't until my opponent conceded. So that was weird. I definitely beat a Storm opponent by outstorming them game 1 a turn earlier than they did, because they had no interaction for Runaway or for the Steamkin. I was just like, oh, this deck does gross things. I really like it. But the nice thing is it's not just that. Even with Steamkin makes it very gross. But the interaction, I'm getting worried, Morgan. I'm getting very worried. And you know what I'm getting worried about?
What's that?
Faithless Looting.
Oh.
Because all of these decks run Faithless Looting.
You have to.
It's
Busto.
Oh my god, Faithless Looting and Arclight Phoenix. That's your chef's kiss. Like that's it. That's the one. That's the slam dunk. And it's yet another deck where Faithless Looting is very, very good. So I'm getting worried about it because it's in a lot of decks now. But I think the thing that's really important about it, and having just played a little bit of some of these decks, yeah, Hollow One does play things like Goblin Lord, Burning Inquiry, which there's no selection there. It is random. But I hope they don't axe Faithless Looting because it is skill testing. Not always. Sometimes you draw 2 cards and discard 2 Phoenixes, and that feels really, really good. But knowing what to discard and when makes Faithless Looting a very, very important card in decks that aren't just straight combo decks. So I hope they don't, but I'm getting antsy.
Yeah? You think it might be time for it to...
It is a disgusting enabler. It really is. Like, it just does everything you want in so many decks. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not too crazy, but things like Frantic Search have been banned, mostly for the untap. But like, I don't know. I hope they don't get rid of it, but it's close. But I think I don't know. I just have very much enjoyed getting to play with Fiery Temper again, and I'm going to get to sleeve up my Torment ones again, which I got to play with all throughout Shadows of Innistrad block, which I'm really excited about that too. So, I don't know. I think like eventually people will figure out Arclight Phoenix, and of course, the interesting thing is that the way that all of the Arclight Phoenix decks that I have seen have been built, yes, Graveyard Hate is okay against them, but it isn't crippling by any means. And I think that's what makes it so much more interesting. Because I think a lot of the decks that normally operate out of the graveyard, like, you can turn them off, right? Like, you have the right Graveyard Hate, you turn them off. But these decks win through Rest in Peace.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? These decks win through, Relic of Progenesis. They win through Leyline of the Voids. And I think like when you look at like the Hollow One deck, I think is the one that's really interesting because there's mono red versions of it as well. But a lot of those decks, especially the mono red ones, obviously they just eschew things like Bloodghast entirely. They're not playing the Flamewake Phoenix. Is that the right one?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Flamewake Phoenix.
Yeah. And they're not playing Gurmag Angler either. So when you bring in your Graveyard Hate against them, the only thing you're turning off are Phoenixes, but you're not turning off the draws that just have a bunch of Hollow Ones. Right. So I think like that's what's really interesting about some of these decks. They can get the format to play poorly around them. Like the first time that I played the Runaway deck and I had someone bring in just like Graveyard Hate against me, I was like, oh, that's going to be tough. And then I realized I can just craft a game plan, especially because of Faithless Looting, where, and also things like Tormenting Voice, where the selection means like, oh, I can just craft a different game plan then. And I think that's why I've been so positive about the deck in the last couple weeks, but also I think why the format's turning on to it as well.
Yeah.
I bought you a lot of time. Did you get that tweet?
No, not at all. Not at all. But I'm still looking. Now, so what do you think of the, like, I've seen a lot of people talk about Modern and talk about, like, you are either playing a Faithless Looting deck, a Ancient Stirrings deck, or... the third one, I think, changes a little bit from here and there, but like Aether Vial has been a popular choice, obviously because of Humans and Spirits being, pretty popular within the format. Do you think like those are the 3 big ones at this point in time, or do you think it's just too hard to pin Modern?
I think down? Maybe I'd add to that. I'd also add like you're playing like a Path to Exile deck.
Sure.
Or if we're talking about one mana spells that define things, or a Thoughtseize deck. So
Yeah.
I think those, because I mean, like again, we've seen this. The weeks will still change, but like any given week, you're seeing things like some variant of Death Shadow or Mutter Pyrancer still exists, and Jeskai and Blue White Control are still both players in the format. So I think like that can definitely still shift, but I don't disagree. I do think like right now you probably are playing a Faithless Looting deck or a Serum Visions deck, or like something that's doing something on turn one, and the format really has pushed that direction. You can't, you can play the control decks, but you still need to be pushing your game plan forward, and that's why going back to even like the recent changes in the format. That's why things like Jace the Mind Sculptor haven't been able to take hold, because you've got to really set up for that card, and it's kind of hard to in this format. So
Yeah, that is still continues to be wild.
I can't believe it. Like I know that like some people were like Fallout the Sky is falling, but I know you probably go find a whole clip show of me on this show saying like they're not going to do that. That card's too powerful, and it's done nothing. And I mean, look at a card like Arclight Phoenix compared to like Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah, I mean, like that card feels more absurdly powerful than Jace, and like not to say things like Azorius Control or even Jeskai don't exist. Like they
still
do
players in the format for sure,
but they aren't. It just doesn't feel like It doesn't feel like Jace the Mind Sculptor when you think of Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Oh no, they're Teferi decks now.
Yeah, like that feels like the more powerful Planeswalker in some of those lists, and when that happens. So it's just so wild how Modern has really shaped up, and kind of come to pass.
I think no matter how you build a format, any Eternal format, and I know like I'm mentioning this because by the time it's still 2 weeks away, right? We're supposed to get a big announcement on December 6th. And I know that some people, we mentioned here, some people think it's going to be a new format. And I think like no matter what your format is, it's going to be defined by those 1-mana cantrips that you have.
Yeah.
Because those you can say like, oh, Modern's this kind of format, but like Legacy's literally a Brainstorm format. Like it just is. It's just all it is. You know what I mean? So yeah. I think like when you look at that, like you can't stop printing cards like that. One, because people love them. But like even right now, if you started with if you made a new format that was Frontier Light or whatever else, what card are all the blue decks probably going to start with? Opt. I mean, they just are. They really are. Anything that's going to be playing a lot of spells is going to be playing a large number of Opt. So I think like it'd be we have said things like maybe cards like Faithless Looting or I just forgot the name of the green one. Sad times. Thank you for your help.
Are you talking about Ancient Stirrings?
Yeah, the one that just like the name just left my brain. That's cool.
It was John Rossum. It says Humans isn't good anymore in Modern.
But I think like we can play in Ancient Stirrings. Is weird that green gets the better cantrip than blue does.
Yeah.
But I think like okay, so you cut that, then we're just doing something else. I mean like in Standard right now, there were decks for a while that were all just playing a bunch of Adventurous Impulse. You know what I mean? Like you're going to play the cantrip you have available to you. So I don't think I'm going to fault any deck for doing that. And I think while we've been critical of things like Ancient Stirrings in the past, like what I just said for Faithless Looting remains true. Like those are skill testing cards. In a lot of games, when you're talking about separating yourself in a format, people talk about how you can't get an advantage in Modern, can't get I don't know. I know that I have definitely punted turn one Thoughtseizes that have lost me games. I played enough Death Shadow to know that's definitely true. And to be able to trace the entire game back to it. You know what I mean? And I know that people have punted games where they pick the wrong card off in Ancient Stirrings, or they discard the wrong cards to Faithless Looting. And I think those cards are, they're not just like, if they were Ancestral Recall, I would agree. You know what I mean? And Brainstorm sometimes is that in Legacy. But that card has been banned in Legacy because it's considered the skill testing card, right? Like, do you know how to brainstorm correctly? Do you know when to brainstorm? Like, heck, when we were testing for the team open with Jordan flat out said he didn't want to play the brainstorm deck because he couldn't answer those questions effectively, and he didn't, and that's not a fault to him. He just hasn't played it very much, but he decided he didn't want to play a deck that had those decisions. You know what I mean? Heck, the brainstorm deck that I felt the most confidence ever with was Shardless, because half the time it didn't matter. I just got to Ancestral anyways. So. So I feel like Modern's still in a pretty good place. It does feel like maybe some of the decks are pretty uninteractive, but I like decks like these that they can present a fast game plan. They are there's more nuance in sideboarding against them than just slamming down your Rest in Peace and thinking you're done. And I think that's why people are being drawn to them as well. And I, for one, am excited about Red having a bit of a resurgence. You know what I mean? Outside of just like burn and stuff, like seeing red decks
Yeah.
that do different things makes me happy because I think WotC has really struggled to give red some identity outside of just burn spells for a while. And Arclight Phoenix is a card that's really giving it another identity. It says play me with blue cards, and most of the decks playing Arclight Phoenix aren't even playing blue cards. In
Yeah.
modern, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have a one blue red version, but then you have two mono red variants and a black red variant. So I know Dave Nolan, former host of the show, was testing out a black red version with Death Shadows, and I'm interested to try that because I was already trying out Mardu Death Shadow for a while, so I
Yeah.
want to take a look at that list. I know Jerry Thompson was pushing a Mardu list that also was like Mardu Pyromancer with Arclight Phoenix. He did suggest that discard spells and Arclight Phoenix aren't very good together, just because you need to like amass things to cast them, and holding discard spells isn't normally an
Yeah, it
effective
feels
way to
bad,
do it.
yeah.
So there is a bit of an issue there, but I think like there's a way to build it that could be interesting. So I'm excited. I know it's going to be something that we see in the format, and anything that makes Modern react is always exciting to me because Modern ripples so hard as a format when things are new.
Yeah.
You mentioned like humans are bad. Humans might be bad. I played against humans a couple of times with the Runaway Red deck, and I was like, oh man, I think I'm gonna be behind really quick. And then all of a sudden it was like, nothing you do matters. Oh, that was weird. Oh, I killed Thalia. Oh, cool, I'm done. Game's over. That's fine.
Yeah.
And you get to play like Anger of the Gods and never care. It's so weird to be an aggressive deck that's just like, all right. Here's board wipe. So
It's like sometimes that's just how things can like shift and change.
Yeah.
With modern, and it doesn't take much.
Sunrise, sunset.
It just, kings of the format at one point in time just fall off the map. And not to say that you can't still, go out there and play them. It's just you can't necessarily expect to have the same
No,
success.
here's the thing about Modern. You always can. Like, you
Yeah.
can go play any deck. Look at the people who've had success with Infect recently, right? Like,
Yeah.
you can pick up decks and bring them back out. And you'll always gain points for knowing your deck better than your opponent.
Yes.
But yeah, just some weeks it may change. And again, I think that's what's been fun. Obviously, Standard is getting the spotlight right now because it has a healthy metagame and a lot of different decks. But Modern, it just, again, it's cool to see. Modern to me feels like a skyscraper made out of Jello, right? And somebody just smacks the base really hard, and you see the whole thing go. Ooh. it's like, ooh, what's gonna happen?
Yeah, I agree. So I think the other kind of big deck that's still on a lot of people's minds is Dredge.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
Do you think that's gonna start changing, or do you think the decks that are kind of rising up don't have the tools really to combat it?
So I had ignored Modern for a little while I was testing Standard, but getting back into Modern the last few weeks because the next major event I'll play in is a Modern event, which is the Columbus Team Open.
Yeah.
So just having played against the new versions of Dredge a couple times now, there are the draws where you don't have hate for them quickly feel hopeless sometimes. Like they spiral so hard out of control. And Crippling Chill has been better than I thought it was going to be. I'm going to be very, very honest. Like that card getting hit at upsetting times changes your math so hard. You're just like, okay, if as long as I do this and this, I can, because in those races, you've got to make sure that you can present a clock timely enough. And when they hit a Crippling Chill or two, and you're like, well,
Yeah,
clock's gone.
Two helixes to the face is pretty good.
But I guess I think we thought about that card maybe wouldn't be good enough, but it seems like it is, at least in the builds that I've been looking at. And the decks just move quickly.
That's default now.
It just is.
They are playing some number of Crippling Chill, and that could be true all the way into Legacy potentially. So I don't know about Vintage. I haven't taken a look at the Dredge Vintage list, but
I think Dredge is always going to struggle with dedicated hate, and if it continues to be as good as it is, it may go quiet for a little bit. But at this point, I don't foresee a Modern format where it just we just lost Dredge for 6 months and it came back. I think the Dredge lists right now are so good that it's just going to be an ebb and flow as opposed to a full on gone for a long time. Dredge feels good. Like if you were sleeving it up, I think you'd be pretty confident in that being a good choice. And if you're a good dredge pilot, then you're probably sitting pretty happy right now. So, and the scary thing is, like I said, you would think that like, oh well, but all these Phoenix decks are going to bring more Graveyard Hate. But I just told you that Graveyard Hate isn't actually that great against the Phoenix decks because they can craft other win conditions much more effectively than even Dredge can. So Dredge probably doesn't get as much hate as you might think because of Phoenix being good.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that's a pretty good overview of, ahead of Star City Games Baltimore, and then, but I just think like I feel like we had to talk about a little bit more about the Arclight Phoenix because I think it's becoming more and more prominent within the format, and I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I was really happy that I picked because I was playing that deck, the standard deck on Moto, and I was like, well, I have all these Phoenixes, so I might as well just start moving into these modern decks as well, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
awesome. Well, I think it's going to be a good time to sort of wrap up the show. So there is, of course, Star City Games Baltimore that is happening this weekend. So that's going to be Modern as the main event. So definitely check it out if you want to see what's happening in the Modern tournaments these days. I think that's everything that's going to be happening. I don't think there's any GPs or anything like that.
Are you sure? No, we do have a GP this weekend. We have 2 GPs this weekend. Do we not? Yeah, Grand Prix Shizuko Legacy and Grand Prix Shizuko Standard. We have a double weekend.
Oh, okay. Well,
I don't know if I'm saying Shizuko correctly. I don't know if
and that's the first.
It might be Shizuoko. I'm not really sure. I apologize for that.
And that's the first and the second.
Yeah, that's the 29th, the first and the second.
Cool. Awesome. So yeah, there's going to be plenty to talk about then next week, isn't there? With all these tournament results.
I guess we also have RP to use as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you see any lists come out of that, we can bring them up too. So yeah, big weekend then. A big weekend. I don't know. Maybe Nico might be having the coverage for that.
Yeah,
so
we'll have to look.
If you want to watch the Japanese coverage, definitely do some research on that and see if Nico is actually going to be covering that or not.
I can't read the website.
Yeah, you don't know Japanese? Not fluent? That's rough.
Nope. Sorry, everybody.
That's rough. So yeah. Thank you all for listening. If you want to, you could definitely reach out to us through various methods. We have a Twitter. It's Your End Step. When you add us, it's at Your End Step. We also have a Facebook. It's facebook.com/@YourEndStep. Or an email address, atyourendstep@gmail.com. We also want to encourage you, if you're listening on one of your Apple products, to leave a rating and review. It definitely helps us get more visibility on the show and gets more people to listen to it. So we appreciate that. Also, if you're listening to us via MTG Cast, be sure to check out some of the other shows that are on there as well. Also, we have a Patreon, so if you do want to contribute to the show financially and become one of our patrons, we sure do appreciate it. You can check that out at patreon.com/@YourEndStep. But that's going to be everything for us this week. We will catch you next time, and you have a great one. Bye.